rubbish,
straws,
detritus,
acidity, dirty,
decay, mold,
degradation,
litter,
filthy,
rot,
pet waste,
excess,
putrescible waste,
pollution,
food containers,
car parts, lots of car parts all over.
plastic forks and spoons,
stinks,
oil spills,
overconsumption,
unaffordable, low quality,
landfill,
roughage, garbage trucks,
fertilizers,
gross, stinky, dirty, yucky, don't touch it,
unappealing, unwanted,
disease,
not good.
sediment,
bad planning. I already said rubbish, because that one's my favorite.
Oscar the Grouch.
Plastic, more plastic.
pesticides,
bad air quality.
The library is the starting point of sustainability.
The Nashville Public Library is an institution of reuse, which is just incredible.
So we talk about reduce is the first thing we need to do. Reuse is the second most important thing to do, and then we talk about recycling. But the library, we are reusing. We're purchasing one book, one DVD, and one computer unit, and everybody in the community is able to access that.
But it also is there to disseminate knowledge to society. The more knowledgeable societies are, the more they can learn about the importance of protecting our planet and our people.
Increasingly emphasizing sustainability as a core value helps spread that messaging, helps get conversation and dialogue around it.
Librarianship in general lends itself to sustainability very naturally because we are always being asked to do more with less, which requires us to be really creative with the resources we have. So we end up reusing a lot of things or finding new life for a lot of things. So many of the crafts that you see children's librarians do will rely on things that you find in a recycling bin, like soda bottles or paper plates. CDs are really common crafting materials now because people have tons of them but not much use for them anymore.
In some cases, books get co-opted for like art projects that people do. Even just the way that like children's librarians operate is like, this could be used for a program. I'm going to save it, is how it is. And I know people who like collect the baby food jars that people have, or like they can kind of be a place where people bring in their stuff because it's like, oh, I know that you're going to need toilet paper rolls, so I'm going to bring you all of our toilet paper rolls. And I think we're kind of like a hub for that, which is amazing.
I think libraries are one of the first places we think of when we talk about, serving a neighborhood, and certainly when we talk about putting routes in, we're always looking at libraries and other things that people use, like community centers. We're really excited about the Antioch Transit Center, and that's going to be at the Old Hickory Hollow Mall site. And it's going to be a very nice facility with an enclosed area and then at least 6 to 8 bus bays, and it'll add some new service there. There's the Southeast Community Center there, there's a library there, there's the Ford Ice Center, there's Nashville State Community College, and there's going to be now housing, and there'll be senior housing. We look for opportunities to be able to better serve people, whether it be to get them to libraries, to get them to shopping, to be able to get them to their jobs. These are all integral parts of how we make a decision about how we schedule buses and how we put routes together.
The library is the only, in my opinion, the only space in the city where you can walk in, quench your mind, and walk back out for free.
I think the library might be one of the most unutilized sustainable resources in our communities, right? So I think we have to do a better job than one, making sure people have access to the library and figuring out how we can interface with communities that could benefit the most from libraries and the resources.
You can check out a book from the library instead of having to purchase that book, instead of having to have that material made, and then what do you do with that book after you've read it?
Instead of buying it for themselves, they can come to us. They will read this book, they will go, great, awesome, and then turn it back into us, and 1,000 other people will do the exact same thing. And then at some point, that book will start to break down, and we'll do what we can to kind of save it. We have a lot of book doctors, essentially.
Movies are an important art form. We show a lot of movies on Dr. Gangrene's Sanitarium. You can watch our show for free on the air, but you can also check out movies at the library for free. The library is just a perfect place for people to come and get physical media they can take, they can watch, and return, and then the next person can do it. It is an important art form because it keeps us connected with our past self. Movies are a barometer of that. It's a way to see how people in the 50s talked, dressed, acted. I'm a big believer in physical media for that very reason. You don't want to see any art form lost, including movies.
It should be a sustainable place and a safe, brave space for everybody to figure out and learn and use the resources. And again, like a library card doesn't cost you anything, but if I don't have access to get to the library to sign up for a library card, can I do that online? If I don't have access to a computer, like these type of things, we gotta try to figure out the barriers.
The library system really can be the heart of a more sustainable city at a time when we really need that type of education and that type of example.
One of the resources that is an intersection between Nashville Public Library and waste is the Library of Things. And that program is just such a wonderful resource for Nashvillians to reduce their waste.
Because especially when you're living in like a city environment where people don't have garages or sheds, you know, the high density, small living spaces, people don't have just space for everything they might only use once a year. Workout equipment or like a radon detector, cooking pans, a moisture meter for your house.
You can try items out before you buy something that maybe you wouldn't end up using that might end up in a landfill or a Goodwill. You can try it first and decide if you want to make that consumer decision.
Rather than buying various tools, instruments, implements, you can borrow them from the library.
Like my experience with using the Library of Things, probably the one that I have used the most is the kettlebell.
The first thing I checked out was the radon detector. That is such a great tool in Tennessee. Radon is a relatively common problem, but if you do your radon detector once, you don't usually need to check for it in the future. So it's sort of a single-use purchase if you're buying your own. So being able to check that out from the library, make sure that my house does not have radon, and then take it back so somebody else could use it was really cool.
We also have things like blood pressure monitors, which started with a partnership with the American Heart Association to get folks that need to routinely be able to check their blood pressure, a way to check out a kit. So we're reducing that financial barrier for health supplies.
Do you know that they have a seed bank?
I love the seed library. It's a wonderful resource. Rather than buying a new packet of seeds, you're able to utilize a resource that gardeners here are regularly creating and take advantage of that. It's just absolutely incredible.
I love the seed saving and sharing programs. Seeds are not, they have a life, a shelf life. So what a lot of us do is when we have too many seeds or we've saved seeds from plants, they go into cute little envelopes and they go to the public library and they're redistributed.
Much like you would check out a book, except for instead of having to return the seeds, you can plant them in your garden or in your yard or on your balcony in a pot in a window in your apartment, and you can grow food. And you can get things like kale and spinach and peppers and just herbs and all this really good food.
What a beautiful program to encourage people to grow their own fruits and vegetables. Again, removing that barrier to having to go and get the seeds. And then literature about how to grow a garden.
I'll collect the seeds from cosmos flowers or whatever I have in the garden and redistribute them.
So pollinator gardens, we are able to plant drought-tolerant plants and teach people. They're like, oh, isn't that pretty? I'm like, yes, and that is there for a purpose, right?
So Urban Green Lab has a program called Lab Certification. And this is where we certify workplaces as labs of learning about sustainable practice. One of my favorite examples of that is the Nashville Public Library, who just this past year certified all 20 plus locations of the system. And I just find that so inspiring that NPL went out of its way to be certified and be a leader among other workplaces trying to be more sustainable.
Where I shine is in the doing. I don't shine in like the talking. I just want to like deep dive and just jump in and do whatever I can. When I just think about the things that I can and cannot control, I just feel like with recycling at NPL at my branch, it was like, okay, you know, I've got the means, I've got the time, I can do this, so why not? To me, there was no other alternative.
We've reached out to different organizations like humane societies, different schools, assisted living facilities if they want old newspapers for any crafts. So we're definitely trying to find ways to use our materials that we aren't necessarily using anymore.
I think one thing we're doing well is that through the Sustainability Committee, we're conducting activities like trash pickup around our library facilities, and that's allowing for our grounds to be free of things that we humans created. And so I think that really helps our environment in a great way.
You know, we take ideas from the members of the committee about what they're passionate about and where they see need within the Nashville Public Libraries. After doing the Bordeaux litter pickup, we got really positive feedback from a judge in the area who frequents the Bordeaux branch. And she commented on how much it meant to her and the community to see library staff coming outside of the walls of the branch and showing care for the community. And I think it's a really good way for the library to do a little bit of outreach in a kind of an indirect way. We're showing that the community matters to us and that we're willing to get our hands dirty.
Today we are picking up litter for the Sustainability Committee. We do it every couple of months just to help clean up our public libraries, and we get to also enjoy time with our coworkers.
And time outside. It feels great. I think that since we value our communities and we're so active in our communities, that we should at least, you know, give back to the same spaces that we want people to come to. And we want them to feel comfortable. We want them to come to a space that's clean and that's inviting and that looks nice. So it's, you know, it's a good thing to help clean up your community.
Water is important because every living organism needs it to survive. You know, we need it for drinking water. There's a lot of sensitive organisms in the water that need cool, temperatured water. It helps support their habitat and their life and their means. So instrumental, and it's so necessary to all living organisms, but it's interesting how many people just don't know as much about it. And so some of that is just spreading awareness of the initiatives that you can have, the impacts of pollution, and the importance that our water provides. The Cumberland River Compact supports a lot of stream cleaning and adopt a stream initiatives to help prevent that trash and pollution from going into the water.
A really important part of protecting riverways is our riparian zones, which is the vegetation that surrounds the banks of the rivers. A setback from where the land meets the water can be 100 feet, it can be 100 yards, where you say you can't alter this environment from its natural state. You have to let native species grow here and let it be essentially wild vegetation because it filters out pollutants.
The larger that buffer system, that vegetative strip of trees and grasses and other native plants along streams helps prevent erosion and helps prevent that sediment from going into the water.
Riparian zones are essential barrier ecosystems. They serve as a filtration for any stormwater. So if there's a big storm, they will go through the riparian zone, and that will filter all the vegetation there. Will filter pollutants and toxins out of that water before it gets into our streams and into our drinking water. It also creates animal habitat or amphibian habitat, those little critters that like water and greenery to survive.
There's a lot of sensitive species that live in the rivers. One to name is the Tennessee's largest salamander, the hellbender, which we look to protect by building better riparian areas.
The streams we work in here in Middle Tennessee have kind of that first order of degradation to them, where a lot of the habitat that the animals live in, the gravel and some of the larger rocks and stuff, are starting to get overtaken by sediment. And there's still adult animals in these streams breeding, but the larvae and the young animals just are having a hard time growing up and kind of getting a foothold. And so what we're doing is we're going out finding nests and then collecting some of those eggs. We leave the majority of them. We bring them back here to the zoo. We hatch the eggs and raise them up past that stage where they're more vulnerable and where they require some of that more intricate habitat to live in. And then once they're of a sufficient size where we feel they're better appropriate to survive in the streams, we release them. We'd like to get to a point where we don't have to do this anymore, and the animals and the streams are able to take care of themselves. But this is just kind of a Band-Aid to help the species get by until we can figure out the best approach to mitigating some of the problems.
By cleaning up litter, we were able to actually keep it out of our streams, our rivers, and then our rivers flow into our ocean. So everything is connected. Don't throw away your trash. Throw away your trash or recycle it. Don't litter.
Oh, I busted the grabber trying to get an old aluminum
The only thing I
can.
could think of is
I tried.
Yeah, if you keep it by the.
When I think of the Cumberland, I also think that's what we drink. That is our water. Like, clean water is so important. And I just wonder, like, the tourists walking over the pedestrian bridge, when I walk over the pedestrian bridge, like, to look at it and think, like, that's our drinking water. And it takes a really sophisticated system to make it safe for us to drink, partially because of the pollution that gets put into it. Trash that gets thrown out on the side of the road. We've all seen it, somebody driving down the road and they just throw something out the window. And it's just disgusting, right, when you see that. The wind blows it. And the wind will blow it into the lowest area that the wind can blow it to unobstructedly. And then a big storm will come, or a light rain. Enough water or wind will move that object into a gully or a ditch.
For the Cumberland River watershed in particular, that starts at the tip of Harlan, Kentucky, and then flows down through Nashville and then back up and feeds into the Ohio River. And there's so many intersecting tributaries that are connected, all of these areas in between are all a part of one singular watershed.
And then it is going to flow into streams, which will flow to creeks, which will flow to rivers, which then empty into the ocean. And if you picture just a little piece of trash or a crushed up aluminum can, it's going to travel all that distance until somebody comes along and maybe it gets washed into the banks of the creek or the river, and somebody picks it up before it keeps going, or it'll end up in our oceans. It's really hard for people to realize that can come from just people throwing something out the window.
The Cumberland River watershed supplies water to 3 million people. You want to reduce stress to local water management facilities. You want to reduce stress to local water resources and waterways. You want it to thrive and stay healthy because it's supporting so many people, humans and animals alike. There's recreational opportunities. We're interacting with water in so many different ways. We're walking through nature, we're viewing it. And so it's for health and enjoyment in that way.
So a lot of our creeks and streams either flow into the Tennessee River watershed when you're looking at Middle Tennessee, or into the Cumberland River watershed. Area lakes that are nearby, things like Percy Priest, Old Hickory, Center Hill. Many of those are man-made from our dam system to generate electricity, all through the Corps of Engineers, and TVA is the Tennessee Valley Authority. Any tributary into it is creating that water flow. If you go on the Duck River or the Stones River or the Harpeth River, these are rivers that maybe kayakers, canoers in Middle Tennessee and the Nashville area will go to recreate. That is flowing into a watershed, whether it is the Cumberland River watershed or the Tennessee River watershed, but it's all connected. So our water is all connected.
Cumberland River Compact loves working with Nashville Public Libraries. We hosted a workshop at Richland Park Library. We were able to educate people about the benefits of rain gardens, the process to build a rain garden, and then from there we actually walked outside of the Richland Park Library to build a designed rain garden.
The Richland Rain Garden is all about stormwater control, and I'm really passionate about stormwater. If we are going to build structures like a library, we need to be aware of how that alters nature and how that alters the flow of stormwater.
The whole walkway, the sidewalk that runs right next to the building would get flooded. It'd be like, if it rained, any good amount of rain, it would be covered in like an inch or two of running water. And ever since we've gotten the rain garden, it stopped doing that because the rain garden just traps it all and uses it.
You can see it now, and it is very beautiful and a very ideal perspective of a good rain garden. So a rain garden is a bowl-like garden designed to collect rainwater. It often can be connected to a downspout from a building.
All the water that's going onto your roof is going into your gutters and coming down the gutter. And usually your gutter has a downspout. Sometimes it's like, just comes right out the gutter. But sometimes they have a downspout that goes into a tube underground.
So you're directing that rainwater and then has like native species that are best suited to filter that water and then clean it before it enters nearby storm drains and waterways.
They're kind of like riparian zones in that they will have plants with roots that then take some of the toxins out and work as a filter of that water as it flows along its path into the river. It also has an impact on structures and livelihoods. With all this development in Nashville, if stormwater isn't taken into consideration, it can sometimes be that the newest, richest, most powerful building diverts their stormwater onto long-term residents or smaller buildings, which can cause damage and destruction. To be good stewards of our resources, we need to be good stewards of how we have used any resource already. So Stormwater Garden really helps control that. And the Cumberland River Compact is an expert in this. By the library partnering with them and working with them on the Richland Park Stormwater Garden, it makes sure that we're using best practices. So we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We can talk to them and they are willing to come say like, hey, yeah, let's get this organized. We'll bring in some volunteers. We'll figure out what supplies you need to bring, what supplies we can bring, because of the goal is to have clean water and to protect our natural resources, but also to protect everybody that is going to be impacted by that stormwater flow. It's part of being a good community member.
So at Donaldson we have the Repair Fair. It's kind of like a collection of people who know how to fix things come together, and we want people who have broken things to bring their stuff and they can hopefully get it fixed. We had about 40 people come in. Just knives alone, we had like 40 knives that were sharpened. So at the end I was relieved, one, that it was successful, and two, excited because I rounded up all the numbers and I did all the statistics, and we saved like 100 or 200 pounds of material from going in a landfill. And just thinking that, you know, just one repair fair saved so much stuff from going into a landfill to wasting away. It was such a great feeling just knowing that we did that together as a community. Back in great-grandparents and grandparents' days, those things weren't as readily available as things are now. Like if you break a lamp, you can just go and buy like a lamp for 20 bucks. So I think just convenience of stuff just being there now has really got us in a mindset of just, oh, we don't have to fix this item, we can just go buy a new one. But I think that's something we should take lessons from, you know, our people before us, and kind of preserving items, our lamps or things like that, and fixing them so we don't have to buy a new one. So with the lamps, they're kind of weird because most of the time to fix them you have to get another part. So we'll advise them what that part is, and then hopefully they'll go and buy the part and either bring it back or fix it themselves with the knowledge that they got from the repair fair.
A friend of mine told me that she was bringing some things out to have them repaired and told me about the program. And I said, oh, I've got a lamp that I love, but it doesn't work. And it all needs to be replaced, the insides, but I love the lamp. She said, grab it and bring it. So I came out here and I said, now I'm not signed up for it, but can I come, you know, can I join you? And she said, oh, yes. So I got the lamp, got everything taken out. We needed a new part. So I had to go get the new part, came back, and they have it all set up for me. It's amazing what they're doing in there.
And she was very appreciative. She, even on our Facebook page, she comments and says, oh, I got my lamp fixed here, it was great.
Last time we had a really great time. We fixed several bikes. Tried to fix a lighter. I'm trying to think what else we worked on. What was that one thing?
There was a tiller.
There was a tiller or something. Anyway, I guess we must have had a good time because we both came back.
I saw this on I think it was one of the emails for the library, Nashville library system. And it just sounded interesting. I'm always fixing things around the house. My dad was a big fixer. So I just thought I wanted to give this a try.
I enjoy helping people fix stuff. I mean, it's something I've done since I've been young. Take things apart. Started with just taking them apart and not getting it back together, and eventually grew into being able to reassemble things.
I'm still at the take it apart and not put it back together yet.
It's a good feeling because I think our society and community is getting a little more sensitive to that because we're filling up our landfills and, you know, we just don't have an easy way to dispose of this, so if we can reuse them, I think that should be where we're headed.
I like to do it every maybe quarter. This is the second one though, so hopefully we'll have one in another 4 or 5 months.
Man, here in the United States, man, it's like, well, we have all of the resources, all the money in the world, and like people are not as happy. And then again, like you have poverty at a ridiculous rate. You have hunger and food insecurity, and food deserts at a rate when we don't have to. That's the thing. We don't have to go through this.
Food security, in my opinion, is vastly misunderstood. A lot of times people will think about people living in tents or under bridges. In our times, that is not the case.
This food desert thing is ridiculous. It's weird in Nashville. You could literally be, I was over by Napier, like, okay, what's the closest Kroger? Man, it's miles away. And it's not like a one shot on a bus. It's like, you gotta wiggle and wham.
It's not what you're thinking in so many pieces. A lot of times, especially with the Bellevue Food Bank, there are folks who have taken in elders, taken in their kids, people with master's degrees that are just struggling paycheck to paycheck to paycheck and need that help. And with that help, the importance of growing and delivering healthy, fresh, organic produce.
In my understanding, a food desert is a residential area that doesn't have easy access to a grocery store or convenience store or anything that offers a variety or any fresh vegetables, produce, things that are not processed and packaged.
In urban areas, it's often if you don't live within 2 miles of a grocery store, then you're considered to be in a food desert. Different organizations define food deserts a little bit differently. If you're in a rural area, they talk about 10 miles.
Yeah, food desert where like the only place you go get food is a gas station or you got like a McDonald's. Your options to eat is either hot Cheetos and Takis or a filet of fish.
And not even access, affordable access to these nutritional foods, right? Just because you got like a Captain D's or a Popeyes or a KFC or a Taco Bell and all those in your community fast foods, like when I think about food deserts, like that's not what I'm talking about. Like I'm talking about nutritional and healthy foods that community does not have immediate, effective, or sustainable access to on a regular basis.
When you got a gas station that got a Pick 5, you know that's that food desert situation. And why isn't that addressed, you know?
Okay, but this all gets tied to transportation too.
It intersects with a lot of things, the mobility to even get, away from a food desert, a food insecurity community, right?
A lot of our grocery stores are pretty good about having a bus line that runs through them. But if you don't have mobility to get to the bus stop, actually you can call WeGo and they will help you with this, so plug for WeGo.
Not only are all of our regular size buses ADA compliant, but we do have a program called Access, and Access basically is the smaller buses you'll see that people can book to be able to take them to medical appointments. Anyone that has trouble riding the bus for medical reasons or disability reasons, really whatever it may be, has the ability to be able to sign up and apply to use the Access system.
If Nashville can deal with racial equity, that will encompass all of the things we talked about. So we can do that. We can racial equity, anti-blackness. If we address those things intentionally from top to bottom, you'll see all those other things that we talk about improve because they all synonymous to one another.
Equity and it's a huge part of what we consider, and you can do that by serving the neighborhoods. So a great example is the North Nashville Transit Center, and one of the reasons for doing this is to better connect people in North Nashville then to jobs downtown, to jobs in other part of the city. This kind of all feeds into that whole idea of you're empowering a neighborhood then to be able to better reach things. Food deserts are an issue, so they will have access to more shopping, to be able to get to other grocery stores. They'll have access to jobs and other things that can support their lives. That's also the future of transportation in Nashville is getting more transit centers out into the neighborhoods so that it's not all just focused downtown like it is right now.
There was a traffic study done near Vanderbilt about some new building and how traffic was going to be affected by this new development. So the developer has to actually pass the study, if you will, to be able to have a new building there with new people and more cars and all that. It occurred to me that the supermarket that was at the corner of 29th and West End closed. They had been there for as long as I first came to Nashville. And there's a building near Centennial Park. It's a low-income building, and a lot of people bought their food there. So Vanderbilt is just a few hundred feet away. You have a bunch of students there. People come for games. There's no food store at all anymore. And that whole stretch, you can't buy any food.
What we've tried to provide with WeGo is a dependable, a comfortable and efficient service for the people of Nashville. But there's just no doubt that we're much, much smaller than what we should be for a city of this size. Nashville's the size of Pittsburgh. We should really be about 4 or 5 times larger transit system than we are here.
Nashville is the second most car-dependent city in the country after Memphis. So we're both in the state of Tennessee.
For everything that is happening in Nashville, there's some sort of transit element to it. Our goal is to make sure that people could live in Nashville without having to have a vehicle and be able to get around to where they need to go.
I don't think Nashville is the most congested city. Wherever I go, there's too many cars. Just seeing that doesn't give me any desire to be part of it.
I think certainly not having to go deal with traffic as a driver is a huge advantage. Trying to get across downtown for 45 minutes to go 3 blocks.
I did drive for about 5 years. When my daughter was in elementary school, I was the chauffeur, and after that, well, I sold my car because I needed money at that point. And then when I was ready to buy a new car, I rented one first, and I was stuck on West End for quite a long time. We lived literally next to a bus stop, and Alice, my daughter, was going to West End Middle, which was less than half a mile from our apartment at that point. It took me 15 minutes to get to work on the bus. Alice could bicycle for a 10-minute bike ride to school over a safe route. And as time went on, I felt less and less of a desire to drive again. What this has meant is that my life has completely changed because I don't go to the same places anymore. Now that I work in Green Hills, it's easy for me to go between Vanderbilt and Green Hills because Belmont Boulevard has a bike lane and it's very safe to bicycle.
It's a big part of what we do is serving people who say, hey, I want to leave the car behind, or even more so, I can't afford a car because the insurance and the parking and everything else is so expensive. And the nice thing about doing things for sustainability reasons is you're also doing them for economic reasons, and you're doing them for practical reasons, and you're doing them just to make neighborhoods better. Part of the goal of transit is to be able to make the city affordable for people. Quite frankly, Nashville is becoming a fairly expensive city.
Talk about wages. Now, if we say we have an affordable housing crisis issue, people can't afford housing, and wages have not increased as the housing market has increased, right? That's a systemic barrier for everybody, right? But then when you look at, we talk about racial equity, you look at black and brown folks specifically that have a disproportionately lower wage income in general, or have a lower wage medium income as far as a city, right? Then you get into, they definitely can't afford housing at this point and can eventually become unhoused. So that's just like one step of how something like wages affects everybody and affordability, right? But then when you break it down to, okay, if we look at who's already being disproportionately discriminated against when it comes to wages, how does that even affect their livelihood even more when it comes to like, hey, I gotta have access to a car. Hey, I gotta pay rent. What does that look like? Hey, I gotta buy food, right? And then we talk about sustainability and the access to nutritional foods. Now maybe because of the wages and the cost of housing, maybe now I have to live in a community that is a food desert, not because I want to, it's because that's all I can afford. And now I gotta eat unhealthy foods as well because that's all that I have access to, and that's the only thing I can afford too. So not only that I don't have access to nutritional food, but because of a wage problem, wage crisis, I can't afford it anyway. So this is what I'm left with if I just wanna put some food in my body.
The food situation and health and access and all of that is so systematically ingrained that you don't even think about it. You know what I'm saying? Them kids in Casey or whatever, they don't even realize that there's nothing around that they need. It's corner stores, you know? So if you want something, you gotta go to the corner store, you get your honey bun, you know what I'm saying? When I was little, that's what it was. We had corner stores. There was nothing, no Whole Foods over there that they can go to or even afford. You know what I'm saying? You can go to the turnip truck, but you can't go to the turnip truck because you got $8 and you need to feed your family. You need a Kroger or Aldi's or something.
And we just creating barriers that's continued to perpetuate a systemic issue when it comes to hunger, food deserts, food insecurity that are impacting our communities, right? And when all this is happening, we already know who's impacting most. It's impacting people of color, black and brown people the most. And so when you don't have access to nutritional food, right, we know that that plays on trauma, your mental health. Then you don't have transportation to it. So it's a lot of different systemic barriers that, you know, that we understand and we know, and that's stats, but like there's systems literally preventing people from being able to effectively combat this in a sustainable way.
It's a lot of issues, but is there just nothing we can do about it? Is that who we are? That's just who we are. That's how this is going to play out.
What you're seeing now is more community gardens. I think there are more people that are trying to figure that out locally.
Community gardens can help offset food deserts to an extent. Part of what they do is they help people realize, well, you can grow food in your yard, if you have a yard, if you have a balcony, if you have a windowsill, and if you have time for it, and then if you have time to cook. It helps offset food, it helps provide fresh food. I think it helps educate people on what nutritious, real food is. The Edge Hill Community Garden is near the public library. It is near public schools. It is near city universities. It is near where people live. It is a place where the local community is growing fresh fruits and vegetables.
I got involved with the garden when a young man named Reverend Dick Allison came to the Resident Association meeting and did a presentation, wanted to know what the residents thought about starting a community garden in the city. They overwhelmingly said yes. Then we looked for a space and we realized that behind Merle School was a vacant lot. So we went to the school board and asked permission to put the garden there. And the person that was in charge, he said, you're welcome to that spot as long as y'all bring us some tomatoes. So we stayed in that spot for a very long time until the precinct, the police department decided they wanted a precinct here in the Edge Hill community. And they chose that spot up there. They said, yeah, we're gonna do this. I says, okay, y'all gotta move our garden. So they said, we'll be glad to. So they moved the tool shed and that greenhouse down here. They moved these fruit trees. We had 50 fruit trees and berry bushes up there. We kept 27. Of the ones that we did not keep, we gave them to Merle School, to Rose Park School, and to the garden in the city over on Joe Johnson. We didn't want any of our stuff to die, so the police precinct provides water from up there where the pipes originally were, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4 different hose spots so where we can hook up for water down here.
It can also provide education on like the larger infrastructure required to feed our population. That's a big part of our how we live, is like what we eat, and we rely so much on just this hard labor that takes place to provide us with food. And it's amazing. It is absolutely amazing that we don't have to grow our own food to stay alive, that there is this interconnection, but just how the market drives what a farmer will plant, and how, you know, that's really set like at the federal level in a lot of ways, of like either where incentives or where environmental regulations about things like crop rotations to make sure that like the soil and the land's not getting depleted.
This idea of biodiversity, that our fields, because we've like grown corn on them year after year after year after year, we're depleting the soil. And so maybe you're gonna plant winter wheat there, or maybe you're gonna plant clover and reintroduce nitrogen into the soil. And then once that's done, and you either harvest it or you don't, or you plant over whatever your main crop is, and then you can start kind of rebuilding the soil.
I basically put what I want down here, but I can't put the same thing in the same spot again next year because it won't really take hold that well. So, well, I had tomatoes, peppers, and squash this year. And so next year I'll put something different here.
Well, when we first did the garden up on the other end, the Youth Leadership Advisory Council for Edge Hill, they had a spot and they grew vegetables and they picked fruit from the trees. We had pears, apples, and a walnut tree up there. And they would pick stuff and sell it. We did it first right there on 12th, and then we partnered with down here at Taco Mamacita, and they would take their stuff down there, and by us dealing with a grant and being in public, the kids decided, you know, instead of putting a price on food, they would just give them a presentation about who they were, what they do in the community, and how they grow fruits and vegetables. And then they would ask people to make a donation. Those kids made over $300 one Saturday, just talking to people and letting people pick what fruit they wanted.
It's not just standing around with some plants. Like I have math students that are like, I don't really care about being outside. I'm like, okay, then I have something for you to do. If I have 36 4x8 beds, how many cubic yards of soil do I need to buy this week?
We decided to do intergenerational gardening, and that's where we would partner our young kids with seniors. So any day that the seniors couldn't make it, the children would be able to take care of their garden spots, but they learned so much from one another. Some of the seniors that had cell phones and stuff, the kids were able to help them maneuver through those cell phones and do like emails and stuff like that on it. So it was like both of them working together to learn something.
And I'll pull out a seed packet and I will help walk them through, number one, what is a USDA growing zone, right? We in Davidson County are in zone 7A. So what does that mean? And then walking them through, well, this means what you can plant and what you can't plant. And then taking them further on to doing like garden math. So if this seed packet says it's 120 days until harvest, and in Davidson County again, our frost date is late October, what does that mean?
Some people go by the almanac, and some people go by their heritage, what old folks used to say. They say never plant anything, don't put nothing in the ground before Good Friday. We'll go to Davidson's Co-op and to Home Depot, and we buy plants so that they can get started with it. You know, because when we first get started, you know, just to plant a seed, you want to see something already, even though you got seeds to add to that. So each gardener is able to pick out at least 5 or 6 plants to put in their spot. And then they're able to, when they figure out whatever else they want to plant, they can go right across the way right there to Edge Hill Branch Library and check out some seeds. And they say, you know, Miss Brenda, we got to have our card and all that. I said, yeah, that benefits everybody. You didn't have a card at first, did you? No. I said, but now you have a library card. I said, and think how many things you can do with that card. You can borrow books, you can do movies, you can get videos from them, you can check them out, keep them, take them back, and you can actually reserve something if something's not in there. So everybody benefits from this partnership here in the community.
We are actually a food desert. We don't have stores, grocery stores over here, so this helps bridge the gap between the desert and healthy.
We've done things like putting up a grill, we got grills, and getting stuff like okra, asparagus, squash. The color of a vegetable tells you pretty much how it affects your body. And so the carrots and stuff, they know that affects your eyes. If you go home and your mama cooks you this, you're gonna say, I don't want it. But stand up here, put it on the grill, put some seasoning on it, and turn it and grill it and get it brown and taste it. Those kids loved it. That's how we get that wisdom to them, by letting them actually put a seed in the ground and watch it grow. Watch it grow, then watch it bloom, and then see that vegetable come from that bloom.
It's wonderful to get these kids hooked into, yeah, you don't want to be outside in the heat. Well, yeah, you don't want to do this. But let me start with the seed packet to help you learn to plant your own zucchini. This is going to be your zucchini plant. And then we're going to learn how to make zucchini bread. It's a lot of tap dancing.
You have people tell me, I'm going to get me some fried okra. I hate fried okra. I like it the way the old folks cooked it, where they just saute it, put it in the skillet, or either a little saucepan with a little bit of water. And I like Irish butter and some garlic and some seasoning salt. And I let that cook a few minutes, because if you overcook them, they pop. But a lot of people don't know if you put a tablespoon of vinegar in it, that'll keep it from busting open. The eggplant, that's one of those that I really like to see grow, because they got beautiful flowers. The okra got beautiful flowers, but then each one of those flowers turn into a piece of food.
Let's talk about food. I think food is an important resource that we all need, but it's also a waste stream. All that food that goes uneaten, all of that food scraps that end up in a landfill that create methane gas.
There are all kinds of people who are knee-deep in the food waste issue, and one of those organizations is the Natural Resources Defense Council, NRDC, and they have done a lot of research on trying to understand how much food is wasted in a city like Nashville. We are on the national average, wasting 40% of our food.
There's a common misconception that best by dates or sell by dates on food items in grocery stores mean that that food has expired, but they are not expiration dates.
You may go buy a carton of milk and it says used by October 1st, but actually that date is not for you, the consumer, it's often for the grocer, with the exception of baby food. And so people think, well, I need to throw this out well before it's actually spoiled.
Really what you should do is look at, okay, does it smell bad? Does it look bad? If that's the case, then sure, you don't want to eat that food, but that best by date is not an expiration date. And it can contribute to a significant amount of food waste when we look at it as an expiration date and throw out good food that could be eaten.
Right, you have systemic barriers to where you have like a Kroger or a Publix or a grocery store in general, right? They can't just even give away food that they know they're gonna have to throw away the next day, right? Which is crazy, right? Why is their policy literally in place where they can't do that?
They really can't even give it away. They can only give it away in certain situations. Like, it's gotta be a unique situation for them to give it away because regulations. I don't want nobody to get sick and blame Kroger for it, which makes sense, you know? It's kind of set up that way.
We live in the richest country in the world and here in the United States of America. Why people don't have food? Like, why are there citizens, residents, like going without eating, and just not eating in general, but why everybody can't eat nutritional food, healthy foods?
One way to reduce your food waste is by donating good food to those in need. The Good Samaritan Act is a policy that allows places like grocery stores or restaurants to ensure that they can do that without fear of litigation.
There's a lot of bureaucracy a lot of times in nonprofits and food distribution. Folks, they'll balk. They'll be like, well, wait a minute. I gave all this money to this, or donated canned food, hominy, or whatever to this nonprofit, and it's being distributed. No.
People are, I think, too concerned about who's getting something they don't deserve. Right? It's like that person don't need that, or even like food stamps is an example, right? Like, a lot of times people are worried about food stamp fraud, right? And if people are having to commit fraud to get food stamps, well, maybe it's because they need it. Why do they have to commit fraud to get the food?
I'm a EBT expert, you know what I'm saying? I think I might be a subject matter expert when it comes to the food stamps, or formerly food stamps, SNAP, or Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program. They had to get rid of the food stamp thing and rebrand it for, to get rid of that stigma. They were trying to get rid of the stigma of food stamps and welfare and all of that. And it's interesting how it's framed, right? Because all of that is really a subsidy for farmers and to keep grocery stores going. Now, the grocery store business is a penny industry, right? So it's like if Kroger is up 2%, they winning because there's so much waste. And I mean, you're dealing with perishable goods. It's like fruit gonna go bad if it ain't there fast enough, somebody don't get it, it's over. There's nothing you can do with that. It's really just put on the backs of low income people like a problem, it's looked at, it's got a bad stigma to it. $60 billion ends up somebody at some big grocery store or something is buying a yacht with that money. You know what I'm saying? When it trickles down, you follow the money, but don't nobody want to have that conversation, That's too much. But at the same time, these very same people will, for lack of better words, on the people that's using it. But at the end of the day, they're getting that money. It's a real weird situation going on. How we look at people for their situations, and people are profiting off those situations. Even though the SNAP program, I don't care who gets the money in the end, that's great because it keeps the grocery store. Them grocery stores close, America closes. We don't know how to function without grocery stores.
There's supply and demand for where grocery stores go, but grocery stores are a business, right? So they're gonna go where there's a population that will sustain the business because they've got to hire all those people. They've got to hire that clerk at the distribution center. They've got to, even if they're using self-checkout, they've got to have people that will stock the shelves and maintain the security of the facility and, do the accounting. So they're looking for a profit margin, and we can't fault them for that because if they are all people trying to make a living, it's like there's not a support model for lower income areas always to make it where there's healthy food. And it's such a complicated thing to approach because if you're looking at it from an economic side of things, supply and demand, well, if it's a neighborhood where you have people that are working really long hours, they're probably going to pop into a fast food restaurant for a relatively low cost and certainly a low time expenditure. They can get food to feed themselves if they have kids, or if they have elderly people that they're taking care of. They can do it quickly. and go home. Time is a commodity as well.
The last thing that so many of us want to do is put forth more effort, put forth more work into making healthy meals. I mean, people are absolutely, they're exhausted.
Nobody even taught me how to eat non-responsibly. You know, it's just kind of like I was just chasing taste. And I never had a coach or teacher be like, you got to try this, try that. You know, my mother, she's a super health person, but she's like over the top. You know what I'm saying? Like, she's not concerned with the taste of it for the most part. She's like eating to live like you're supposed to, you know? She's just eating to live. It's a different world now than it was.
Well, a big problem that exists out there is that a lot of the fast food places have taken away their healthy choices. So not only is it more expensive to eat healthier, but the places that are less expensive are no longer offering healthy alternatives. So it's a huge problem, something that, you know, we need to somehow get them to bring back some healthy choices. You know, there for a while, some of them were actually offering some salads and some, you know, alternatives, but I see more and more of that getting whittled away now.
And that is just not sustainable. I hate to sound like the old people when I was growing up, but they don't make stuff like they used to, you know, because we're not as concerned about the quality of things anymore, you know. We just want it fast, we want it now, we want it to look good.
Teaching youth better nutrition and why nutrition is important to them, and teaching them how to make their own healthy foods and snacks. That is such a big deal in the world that we're living in. Still, we have the fast food. Now we've got the DoorDash.
They don't have access to it, and you don't even realize what that does to your mind, your body. Even when you're a kid, if you putting garbage in, it's garbage out. You know, they don't have any good fuel. Versus, man, you go to Green Hills and you can go to Trader Joe's, you can go to Whole Foods, and not only can you go to them, but socioeconomically, you can afford that. You have to afford to be healthy in this day and age and in this country and in this city. You have to afford it. You know what I'm saying? It's cheaper to get by.
Preparing food can take a lot of time. It can take a lot of skill. It's taken me a long time to learn how to manage to cook really healthy food for myself in a way that will feed me for the week as someone who works, you know. So sometimes I have to do like meal prep, and you can make really big batches of things and you can freeze them, and then it's almost like you've made your own fast food. Like just pull that container of stew out of the freezer, you can pop it in the microwave for lunch or dinner the next day. And a lot of our produce can be grown, but when people are busy, we're working, you know, we don't really have lifestyles where we can can food for the winter.
If this is organic and if it's fresh, where did it come from? Because the label says that it came from Newark, New Jersey. How'd that happen? So for me, again, it's that critical consumerism. It's that education piece.
So food as a product, if you're thinking about shipping that product from Mexico, from China, from wherever it's coming from across the world, that has implications not only in cost, but also really in the cost to the people that maybe live in those communities, as well as the environmental impact of harvesting all of that food, destroying those natural resources, or destroying the soils that grow that food. We have to replenish that. And when we're doing that from all the way across the world, there's a lot more energy that's required and a lot more greenhouse gases that are required to get that item from, you know, wherever it starts from to here to our local stores. Whereas we have farmers, we have agriculture here in the Middle Tennessee region that produce good quality food. And if we're relying upon that food coming from somewhere else, what happens when there's a breakdown? What happens when we've destroyed the soils and now that food isn't able to get to us anymore? I recognize, for example, I love avocados, but I also recognize that avocados don't grow naturally here in the Middle Tennessee region, but there's a consequence for that. So it's important to just think, how can we support a local economy so that We're not looking at a future where, oh gosh, we're out of avocados or we're out of these different items. We can't get them anymore because our climate has changed, and so that we're able to be more resilient on a local level and not be so reliant.
I'm fascinated also by food preservation. Preserving our food over time is a fascinating piece of it. I mean, how many kids know how to can? Or why that would be important to think about any kind of supply chain breakdown. So what if I couldn't get the fresh tomatoes from Newark, New Jersey? How can we teach ourselves to sustain ourselves like a Little House on the Prairie? Growing, preserving, dehydrating, just drying herbs year round.
A lot of people try to do the right things, but it's hard, you know, you get stuck in a rut. I mean, we know fast food's not good for us, but yet it's so easy to grab that burger and chow it down, or grab those fries, all those things that people do for themselves, even though they know that it's not the best thing health-wise. I mean, I'm not a doctor. I do play one on TV, but take it for what it's worth. So let's put a cap on litter and go green with Dr. Game Green.
The ingredients is in our food. Some of these ingredients are banned in other countries for a reason.
We just all about, we taste chasing. America is like, we want it to taste good, we want it to feel good, look good. It's not really concerned with what it does to you or for you. That ain't really the American way. It's more of like a look and a feel than it is the inside.
There's a lot of plant movies out there. You got The Day of the Triffids, you got Attack of the Killer Tomatoes, Little Shop of Horrors with man-eating giant plants. And I find it kind of interesting because in real life, it's not plants eating us that's the real fear. It's what we're eating and some of the garbage that we're putting into our bodies. I mean, some of the fast food and processed food and chemicals that are actually sprayed on the plants that we are in turn ingesting that are actually doing a number on us. So the real life fears of that are kind of worse than what's in the movies.
Just me in the garden watching how different insects attack each other. They don't need my pesticide. They're going to get wiped out by that wasp. You know, there is a system. The system is already there. And I do notice, that after they come spray, for a few days, there are no butterflies, the birds kind of go elsewhere and things like that, you know, and it takes a while for them to come back.
It's short-term greed, you know what I'm saying? One of my dudes used to say, he's like, man, you gotta have some long-term greed, you know? You gotta have some long-term greed. You got too much short-term greed. And I think that's the American way. But I know with us, it's like we got too much short-term greed because I think it's just so hard. Everything's so hard that you can't even see 10 years from now because what's right in front of you is punching you in the face. So you got to get through each moment, and I think that is just doing damage to us. It's doing damage to our minds, doing damage to our body, doing damage to these kids, all the kids, not just black kids or kids in the cities, but that's doing damage to all of the kids, which does damage to us, because the children, I believe the children are our future.
Money is going to be spent either way, right? Would you rather spend the money when it comes to food and people's health, the general population health on the front end, which is by investing in community gardens, nutritional access to food, allowing people that needs the food to have access and giving them the food, even if it's at subsidized or free costs in general? Would you rather put money there, right? Or let people eat unhealthy, right? Which can, you know, lead to significant health problems, whether it's cancer, whether that's high blood pressure, diabetes, cholesterol, a heart attack, a stroke, whatever it may be, and try to correct the problem from a health standpoint. Again, money is going to have to be spent and invested into some way, form, or fashion.
Food waste and organic waste is about 1/3 of what Nashvilleian residents throw into their trash and garbage. And it is the #1 contributor to methane gas in our landfills, because as that organic material, as that food and yard waste or whatever it might be breaks down in the landfill, there's no oxygen, and so it creates that harmful pollution. However, all of that material can be composted. It can be composted in your backyard. We have, at all of our convenience centers, we have drop-off locations, again, at no additional charge to Nashville residents. You can drop off your food scraps or even compostable plastics as long as they are certified compostable.
But there are also local services here in Nashville that can come and pick up your food scraps and take it to a facility where they turn it into compostable material.
I think that's what brings me the most joy about composting and stuff, is that you take this ear of corn, you get all the parts that you need to eat, and then you can use the cob for stock or whatever, and then you get all of the nutrients out of that and all of the amazing flavors out of that. And then people use corn husks all the time for tamales, or people make dolls out of them too, which is really cool. At the end, when there's just nothing left of it, putting it back into the compost, letting the decomposition process take place so that then it can go back and it can just all start again.
Well, composting is a great solution to reducing food waste and taking better care of our food resources. Basically what composting does is it takes your food scraps and it turns it into nutrient-rich soil.
So much of what makes your trash smell is throwing organic waste in there, which will break down, start to decay, and give off an odor. If you compost and you do it properly, then you're not putting that in the trash, and then the trash doesn't smell. I mean, you're not throwing anything in there that inherently has an odor.
So what you want to do with compost is you want to take part roughage that's leaves, kind of paper. They call it brown is the term for it. So you take a good portion of that along with your apple cores, your peels or whatever, and you put them together. Over time, the enzymes kind of break each other down because it needs air, it needs a certain level of moisture, and then movement as well. And you keep moving it, you keep kind of turning it, and eventually what happens is everything breaks down together. It's like magic.
I was initially a little resistant to the idea of composting. We don't have very much property. We pretty much have our back porch, and that's the extent of our outdoor space. And when my husband wanted to start composting, I was really concerned about the smell or the creepy crawlies that it might attract. But he was very passionate about it, so I went with it, and the compost decision has turned out, it's really paid dividends for us. There isn't a smell, there are some creepy crawlies, so I just don't put my hands in there. If we need compost, he can get it out. But we use it in our garden, we use it in our front yard. Things break down so fast. It's a really efficient way of getting rid of the leaves in our yard in the fall, because those are gone in days in the compost, and then we have that compost to spread back on the yard, so everything grows nice and pretty in the spring.
Carbon emissions is essentially pollution, but it's pollution that is doing a lot more harm than perhaps we ever thought that it was. Of course, nobody wants pollution. Pollution is a negative term. We think about poor air quality, which impacts our health. So carbon emissions, it's the pollution that's created from all of the things that we do, or has the potential to be created from all of the things that we do. So from that's driving your car and burning gas, or when you landfill material, it creates carbon dioxide. It also creates methane gas, which is another similar pollutant that is degrading our environment.
We already did the damage, you know what I'm saying? We don't even realize that the damage is done. We gotta reverse the hurt if we got any chance. It's not like we can stop. It's not 20 years ago when they were talking about stopping it. Oh, we can stop it. We should have jumped on that boat then, but we didn't.
It's also backwards that deforestation or logging, and I say deforestation, like a forest fire, doesn't make sense to people in that sometimes things have to burn. That is the way that forests actually rejuvenate.
This idea of like just being effective, just trying to reduce waste and trying to be good stewards of the land and the resources, and the world's on fire, right?
I feel like the world is literally on fire. There's like fires in like Brazil and like Canada and Washington State, and like they're like huge fires, and they're like affecting us here in Nashville, and they're like a fire in Canada is like affecting somebody in Florida, and that should be enough for people to be like, okay, we need to like do something. Like we're like literally like burning the world.
If the house is on fire, it don't matter if somebody set it on fire or it caught on fire. It's on fire. You just gotta get out, put it out. It don't even, how we got there don't matter.
A generation has never been more educated on the effects of our actions to what can bear hold to the planet and what that looks like. I think that they've never been more awakened as a generation. So they see exactly how much each footprint means and what aftermath that looks like. And so I think that is really eye-opening for them and makes them want to be involved in different school groups, different community groups. I think it's just more awareness in a way. And obviously, like social media, being aware can sometimes have its negative downsides, but I think that this is one way that they are very aware of what that looks like, and to have their finger on the pulse of exactly what their actions can or cannot have consequences for. And so I do think that they are very aware of it. They're very active. They care a whole lot. We care. We see these effects. We don't want to continue this way, and we'd like to change it for the better before we can no longer have a change.
The entire universe is connected, but on Earth, on our planet, I mean, stuff in Australia can have an effect on, Canada can have an effect on Egypt, can have an effect on Antarctica. We're all connected. We are all literally connected, big picture and little picture. On the infinitesimal, tiniest level, you can look inside of your body and realize that it's bacteria and viruses that's just moving around, and that bacteria and virus is moving from person to person, from chair to table to like, there's stuff that we just can't see on a microscopic level that's literally connecting us.
Nashville is diversely segregated. We still living in silos, very much community silos, right? And that's why we have to explore other communities and care about other communities outside of our own. And we all say we care about community, right? There's a lot of people who say that, but a lot of people really just care about like their cliques. A minority of people are actually with community and bring community with them when they're thinking about solution-based things and making our communities healthier in all ways.
Man, I'm failing all the time. I mean, I go to the store and I am literally buying everything from soap to food. And I know that a lot of that food I could just grow it in my front yard garden. I use a gasoline-powered car every day. And I use my AC unit all the time. And I know that Freon is literally destroying the earth.
I don't think you can force somebody to like have this ethical obligation to the future. I don't think you can make somebody care. I think they have to want to care, and I think it's undeniable that the messaging isn't hitting with everybody. And so like, how can we have a conversation about what actually are effective solutions? Like, what do we all care about? I believe we all care about our water infrastructure. Even if somebody's drinking bottled, filtered water, like they're taking showers, they're, using facilities that require water. And so that's something I think we can all agree to care about. And can we start there?
I feel like probably the smallest thing that you could do is like preserving energy, turning off your lights, turning the water off while you're brushing your teeth.
A lot of it is I just haven't had the time to sit and be like, okay, how do I build an earth ship? Because I know that drywall is bad, laminate is bad, all these building products that we're using, all these building materials are horrible, and I want to stop using them. But the alternatives aren't really that readily available. It's like bigger system things like that of just like, I know that all of this stuff is like bad, but what do I do? What else do I do? I have to, if I don't go into work, I'm gonna get fired from work. I'm not gonna have a place to live. I have to drive my car. I have to go into work. I have to use the computers and the laptops and get on the internet and plug myself in and do all of this stuff that I know is creating this cognitive dissonance inside of me of like, I know that this is bad, but I'm still doing it.
The amounts and levels of stuff that we throw away and think about where does it go, we gotta show people that stuff. They need to see it in real life. They need to see like, take it, watch it go from somebody's house, a bag with garbage, go to a landfill, tell them where that landfill is at. How does this affect? It's like, oh, I know where that is. It's people who live 10 miles from there. How does that affect them? I think we gotta show people, man, the effect of it. We don't, in America, you don't feel the effect. That's the beauty of being an American, that you don't feel it on the front end, you know? We feel it on the back end. We feel it in our systems. We feel it in unequal education and unequal everything. We feel it there. But even that is still like underlined. It's not overt. George Floyd was overt. It was like, okay, it was on camera so you could see that and you could feel it. But most of the stuff like that happens, you don't see it, but it's happening, you know? And I think showing people, man, we are very visual people in society right now.
I'm not trying to make excuses for myself at failing, because I'm failing all the time at not being sustainable. But a large part of it is I feel like I'm at a restaurant that's offering me one option on the menu, maybe 1.5 options on the menu. We don't have many options in Nashville of what to do, or we don't have many options in America or really the world of like, okay, we know that using fossil fuels, we know that using a gasoline powered car is not good. It is geysering carbon into the environment. We know that using HVAC units, HVAC units are literally destroying the environment. But the other options that we have aren't really available to us to where we can just make that switch.
There's just so much that we can do, but it's hard to do everything. It's, I would say, almost impossible to do everything.
The earth is resilient, but the earth is also fragile. And so if we want future generations to experience the most beautiful parts of what nature can give us, we have to care for it. There's many ways to approach caring for the earth and why somebody should care. One that is often talked about is like, let's do it for future generations. And people say, oh, I wanna leave to my grandchild the first-hand experience of seeing a butterfly. You know, I don't want them to have to read about butterflies in the books. I want them to see butterflies land on their toes.
Patience is the thing that's missing there, because it's this like dopamine addiction of, I want strawberry and I want it now. So I can go out at 11:30 at night and buy us some strawberries right now.
I think we're seeing a lot of, I would say, a disconnect with our natural environment has certainly been something that those in the sustainability space battle with.
I think there are people that really want to help the earth. Like, they've been convinced this is a good, worthwhile endeavor, but maybe they're not informed on like what efforts really need to be to have the impact they desire.
I do see Nashville moving in that direction, and I do see people becoming more educated about where their food comes from and understanding that it matters where their food comes from. It matters how far it's traveled. If you eat a local tomato versus a store-bought tomato that traveled hundreds of miles, there's no comparison. I mean, I defy anybody to taste test those two things. Or if you don't like tomatoes, a peach, a farm fresh egg versus an egg that's been shipped from a factory farm. I have backyard chickens, and they're the best eggs ever. And I love getting to talk to my girls, and every time they lay an egg, I'm like, thank you, girls.
Because everything is so convenient, because you can go and get strawberries any time of the year, and because you go to the grocery store to get those things, I think there's a lot of disconnect. And I see this a lot with non-food products, so like plastic products and with paper plates and all of these different things that are so disposable in our everyday lives. There's not a connection to the fact that that is a natural resource, that we have had to extract that from the earth, and we may be extracting so much that it's not coming back, that it will be gone, and that will be detrimental to us in the long term.
I like to use the word farm strong, teaching that independence and just planting those little seeds, pardon the pun, of caretaking for the earth.
If we continue to overtake the natural world, which we live in as well, it's going to really start impacting us. We rely on this world just like all these other species do. Right now, we're just not impacted quite as heavily as they are. We've found ways to kind of work around our own problems that we've caused in the world, but eventually it'll catch up.
Knowing that you're part of a system, you're not the whole system.
I think when people see what the problems are, they want to solve, they want to try to fix them, and when they're confronted with a reality.
I think sometimes people approach it from a perspective that when you honor the earth and you respect the earth, then you're more in harmony with yourself, because we are ultimately of this earth. We consume the earth to sustain life, whether it be water or air or plant or even animal life.
It seems like for a really long time there have been all these traditions of like Mother Earth, or the earth is your father, your mother, and you're like of the earth and you came from the earth. But there was a shift that happened somewhere along the way that caused people to think that they are supreme to the earth, that we can do whatever we want to the earth, and we like walk on the earth and it belongs to us. It was made for us. Now it's just crumbling.
I feel like there's no black and white to it. It kind of depends on what you're wanting to be sustainable with, because there's sustainable farming, there's just sustainable green living. To me, it's kind of all-encompassing. It's a little bit of all of it.
Most people want to be sustainable. They don't want to be wasteful. Once you think about it, there's no reason really to be super wasteful.
Maybe for those that aren't totally sold on the connection to the earth or for future generations, but it's for right now. Right now, I want to breathe fresh air. I don't want to be coughing. I don't want my eyes to burn from pollution. I want to drink fresh water. I don't want to have to boil my water. Well, everything we pour out into the ground, into the sink, gets into our water system, because if ditches lead to streams, which lead to creeks, which lead to rivers. Rivers are where we get our water, which lead to oceans. I mean, it's all connected. Oceans, we eat a lot of food out of the ocean. We eat fish out of our rivers as well. That's kind of a long way of saying, like, if you want to feel good right now, today, you want to have fresh water to drink, or you at least want foods and drinks that have been made from fresh water. You want to be able to breathe without having to clear your throat, just because of air pollution.
We can't fix these things, but I can fix this area right here. I can walk a path, pick up a cigarette butt, pick up some wrappers, work with other volunteers to plant a tomato, get to know somebody.
And I do think people are happier when they see, greenery and they see life around them.
They come up here and they don't want to get their hands dirty. We encourage everybody to wear gloves, but it's something about putting your hands in that soil. I call it Mother Earth, and you feel that on your hands and stuff. One of our gardeners was sick, and he wasn't able to come to the garden. I told his wife to go up there, and I dug up a Ziploc bag with some of our richest soil. You could actually just smell it and smell how good it smelled. I said, take this home and tell him to put his hands in this bag and rub that soil around, and let's see if he don't get a little bit better. Then I was just amazed to look up and see him coming in the garden, and working the way he is with the garden. I mean, It's something about Mother Earth that's beneficial to everybody.
Sustainability is
just making one small goal.
Leave it how you found it, or leave it better than how you found it.
Sustainability to me is
the ability to keep going.
The path, the wherewithal is definitely out there.
This is something I love about Nashville, is that we really understand how to partner with each other.
possibility.
Change.
that we find more places to come together.
Sustainability is
opportunity.
Future.
I would also love to see that for Nashville.
Not just love thy neighbor, but how to love thy neighbor.
everybody can be sustainable in their own way.
You know things are going to be all right when you're starting to see so many types of people that are finding their place.
What we do here is going to have an effect on other people.
And how can we help our planet?
Progress over perfection.
Solutions.
When I think of sustainability, making choices that ensures the earth and its non-renewable resources are still here in the future.
Even that little spark will still go a long way in the future.
Sustainability to me just means trying to take care of the planet in whatever way you can.
Caring for our home.
Beautiful.
Longevity.
So that gives me hope.
The world's a big place and all I can do is try to play my part